take it by the somewhat robust look on his face that John McClain is once again passed his COVID test. Would I be assuming correctly, Mr. McClain?
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about robust, but yeah, I did pass. It was a little bit, the email came a little bit later than normal. I don't know why that bothers me, but it
Ooh.
bothers me.
Did,
I think they're
could we
doing
see you
extra.
sweat because the email was later than
Well,
usual?
one time it came at like 3 in the morning. That's the latest it's ever come, and I was assuming that I was half dead. They didn't want to give me the bad news, but last night was just about an hour or so late. And I always, conspiracy in my mind. I'm thinking, well, they're double
Sure.
testing and whatever. But so
Now,
far, so good, which is pretty amazing considering, you know, nobody cares about us. We're all mucked together in media houses and planes. Everybody else is distance. You would think I would be in bad trouble, but so far, so good.
it means the vaccine's working, which is a good thing. And yeah, I love getting off on tangents like this, and I apologize ahead of time. But we got 2 hours, and we got plenty of Eagles, Raiders, and Birds fans. Fear not. Um, how many times have you been tested now? How many times in your life have you had to take a COVID test?
Ooh, well, last year I got tested every day throughout training camp, so that's like 30-ish or so there. Um, then it was once a week throughout the season, and it's pretty much been once a week uh, through this season. So a solid way over 50. I'd say between 50 and 100.
Well, whatever that number is, since it's between 50 and 100, I'll pick one. 70 times you've been tested. That's 70 more than me. I have never taken a COVID test. I don't cover a team on a day in, day out basis like you. I've never had symptoms, never felt bad, so I didn't feel the need to go get one. I have never had, they still going up the nasal passage for the test?
Yes, yes. And it's, dependent on who you get, which day. You might have a easy day, you might have a brain tickling day. Depends.
Oh, it hasn't affected your brain. It's still working quite well for us here on Birds 365. Thank you, J Mac. We've got a good show planned for you, mostly Eagles and Raiders conversation with the game coming up on Sunday. And I got a major issue for the Eagles and how they're going to be able to potentially win this game against Las Vegas. I don't think it's going to be very easy. Marcus Hayes is going to join us coming up in a little over 15 minutes from now. He grabbed everyone's attention with a column earlier this week when he suggested Jalen Hurts should have a seat, that the Eagles should actually make a change at quarterback as quickly as now, which is a little drastic for me, but we'll discuss that with Marcus when we punch him up. But I do want to talk about the quarterback position here at the top because, guess what happened? The Deshaun Watson conversation percolated up again yesterday. Apparently, the Miami Dolphins and the Texans have had substantial conversations. Nothing imminent, but substantial conversations. Our buddy John McClain, who I can guarantee you is tied to that Texans organization. He has probably got more insight / sources for that team down there in Houston than any other media member. Was one of those who was saying that, yes, the conversations aren't just informal, that they are getting closer to potentially doing a deal. There were also reports that the Eagles have had conversations with the Texans. No one's saying that they have been as advanced as the Miami conversations, but at least if you were wondering, Eagles fans, are the Eagles staying in the hunt for Deshaun Watson? Well, at least they're trying. Let's talk about the Miami situation before we talk about the Eagles, John. Dolphins have been a team that have been as closely tied to Deshaun Watson as any during this offseason. Tua Tagovailoa has not gotten off to a great start. I'll tell you, watching that game last week, and yes, I got up at 9:30 to watch football from London. He was not bad, threw for over 300 yards, threw a couple of touchdowns. He was not the main reason that the Dolphins lost and fell to 1-5, which is very good for the Eagles since they have the Dolphins first-round draft pick. Thank you very much. But apparently Miami is soured pretty damn quickly on Tua Tagovailoa, and that's why they're ready to do this deal. Here's my question for you, JM. Nothing's changed. There's been no progress in Deshaun Watson's off-field situation. He still has all the lawsuits against him, which have not progressed any. Sometimes things drag slowly through the court system. The investigations by the Houston PD, the FBI, which because some of the masseuses that he had come in were from out of state, which gives the FBI the ability to investigate a case like this, and the NFL itself. There are 3 ongoing investigations, and they're going nowhere fast, too, because Deshaun can rightfully say, I've been advised by counsel not to comment. If anybody wants to talk to Deshaun Watson can say, no, I'm sorry, I can't talk to you now because it's going to affect my upcoming civil lawsuits. So nothing has changed on that front. The only thing that's changed is the NFL trade deadline. It's getting closer. So that has perked up these conversations again. Is there any chance that something's going to happen here, JM?
Yeah, I think he's going to be moved by the trade deadline. I think he's going to be moved to Miami. That's always been my assumption. Behind the scenes in the league, it's been, that thought process for a pretty long time, honestly, and that, a lot of it from Miami is ownership driven, and that Stephen Ross wants Deshaun Watson on the Dolphins. And, if you're a GM, if you're a head coach, you might want something different, and you might be able to hold off the owner for a little bit of time. But ultimately, if he decides he wants something done, and Deshaun Watson, from all indications, would like to be in Miami as well, one of the situations he would like, it's difficult to hold off the owner. If the owner wants something to do, you got to do it. And I think that's where we are with the Miami Dolphins. And I think that's what has changed. If anything has changed, I don't think much has changed, but he's probably put his foot down a little bit and said, all right, let's do this. If we wait to next year's draft, we talked about a lot, it's only going to be worse as far as trying to acquire the guy, because you're probably going to have more interest from teams around the league. We've seen the draft. The top of the draft is not heavy at quarterback this year. It doesn't look like it's going to get any heavier. It doesn't look like there's going to be miracle runs down the late stretch of the college season that push people up the board. I think it just comes down to the owner wants him, and he's telling his people to get it done by the trade deadline. And then, then the conversation becomes, what does the NFL do? Does the NFL put him on the commissioner's exempt list to keep him off the field? Which I think Miami is willing to take that medicine and wait. But it will force the NFL's hand, because technically he could play right now. He could play for the Texans. If he gets traded, he can play for the Dolphins. He can play for the Panthers. He can play for the Eagles. From the Eagles' perspective, we've been telling you on this show, yeah, they would love to have Deshaun Watson. They have interest in Deshaun Watson. They've been checking in and taking the temperature on Deshaun Watson forever, it seems. He doesn't want to play here for whatever reason. I don't know what that reason is. But he's got a no trade clause, and Philadelphia is not one of the places he wants to be.
So let me ask you about the NFL's stance as we sit here today. They never took an action against Deshaun Watson, and it's at least partially understandable, because the NFL has tried to, when they can, not take a stance before a legal situation plays itself out in court. If they can wait till after a situation is dealt with in the court systems, they do. Sometimes their hand gets forced and they need to take a stance before the courts can play themselves out. They've chosen not to here, even though we knew when depositions would come, and we knew this wasn't going to be dealt with till 2022. So you knew there was going to go the entire season, that if they wanted to, they could stand on the sidelines. And that's what they've chosen to do. If he gets dealt next week, 10 days, to either Miami, Philadelphia, Carolina, whatever, nothing will have changed. So what would the NFL stance be as to, okay, Now we're going to take a stand, and here's what we're going to do. They have to explain why, don't they? What is different
Well,
because
I
he's
think
been traded to another team?
well, two things there. I think you've seen by the John Gruden stuff and the Washington football team investigation, they don't have to explain anything that they don't want to explain, and they just do what they want. But that's, set that aside. It's been a very unique situation. The league has gotten a little bit lucky from the perspective of Houston has decided they don't want to play him and is willing to go along with this ruse and just pay him and have him sit there, and he's not activated. So they've gotten kind of lucky, and Deshaun hasn't complained about it because he doesn't want to play for Houston. So it's been an easy road for the league. They have not had to make a decision. Now, presumably, if Miami acquires him, they want to play him. And, maybe he hasn't practiced all that much. He hasn't played all that much. Maybe it will need a couple-week ramp-up period if, say, they make the deal at the deadline. But the clock is ticking because they'll want to get him on the field if he's capable of playing. He'll also want to be on the field if he's capable of playing. So then they have to make a decision. Are we going to let this guy on the field, the media circus that follows that, the negative publicity that's going to come out of that? Obviously, Stephen Ross has decided it's worth it from the Dolphins' perspective. From the league's perspective, either put him on the commissioner's exempt list and fight that fight, or let him play. That's the only two options right now.
So you mentioned and deal with the negative publicity. That was going to be my next question. Thank you for setting it up. Miami, Philadelphia, Carolina, whoever recovers, whoever is able to trade for him. All these charges are still above his head at this point. And if you were to trade for a guy and bring him in, sure as heck, you want him to play right away. Get that, understand that. Are they going to face public scrutiny? Are they going to hear from their fan base? Do they handle their business the same way the NFL's business is? Yeah, complaints, get at the back of the line. What are you going to do? Turn off the TV on Sunday? I don't think so. Is that the way it will play with the organizations that would acquire him if he is traded?
I mean, you can only speculate, but the Dolphins have already made their decision there. They already understand no matter what happens, and they know there's going to be protesting, and they know there's going to be picketing. I mean, you look at Dave Chappelle's special. I was joking about that. I thought it was a Chappelle show sketch. He was doing his comedy special. People didn't like some of the jokes. They're picketing in front of Netflix. They're having a walkout in front of Net. I mean, that's where we are in 2021 America. I mean, that's where we are. And yeah, I mean, we talked about Jeffrey Lurie a lot over the years, Jody, being willing to give people second chances, whether most notably, probably most high profile would be Michael Vick,
sure.
There were a lot of protests. There were people, but man, even from that, which isn't that long ago, to today, society has changed greatly. I mean, there's going to be a significant blowback to the Miami Dolphins or anybody else that trades for Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, you as an organization have to have developed that plan going in. It's pretty clear to me, Stephen Ross has already said, all right, we'll take it. And the NFL has the knowledge of what you just said. Same thing with the Gruden investigation, the Washington football team stuff, no written report. It's laughable on its face. But they know you're not changing that channel. They know at the end of the day, people can yell and scream all they want. There's a large sample size to pluck from. People do not change the channel from the NFL.
And you can be upset with it. You can individually decide you're not going to follow the product anymore. If you're an Eagle fan and you say, I'm not rooting for a team with Deshaun Watson as their quarterback, that's perfectly fine. You probably got off the train when Michael Vick was the quarterback as well. I openly said on the air that I have a tougher time watching games where the quarterback is a guy who I can't respect, who I look down on. I did give Michael Vick this much. He did his time. He did. He went to jail for a significant period of time, got out, and I do believe in second chances. So I didn't chastise the Eagles for giving the guy a chance. Just personally, I couldn't bring myself to root for a guy who had the hand in dog fightings that he did. But that's just me. Everybody can make their own decision. But here's the point, and you and I have kind of hammered this home. We're not going to change. What do we got right now? 70 people watching that live here on Birds 365, and not many more after the fact thereafter. You're not moving the needle by yourself. The NFL has the captured audience that they have. And Deshaun Watson is not going to, the playing of Deshaun Watson is not going to bring the NFL to its knees. The NFL has had bigger issues and bigger problems, Aaron Hernandez, to deal with, and they've gotten past that. Okay. So they'll get past Deshaun Watson as well. And that's why I think a team like the Dolphins and or the Eagles is willing to take that chance if need be.
Yeah, and there's going to be more. Carolina, as I said. And if you get to next year, if he isn't traded by the trade deadline, if you get to next year's draft when sort of in free agency before the draft, when the transaction season, so to speak, kicks off, and everybody looks at those young quarterbacks and say, we need a quarterback. We can't find a quarterback in this draft. It's only going to be more expensive. And that's what, Howie Roseman talks about being the bad cop all the time when it talks to player transactions, talked about it with Zach Ertz. You got to make that football decision. Okay, we want to get better as a football team. There's going to be some PR hits. We think this guy is going to play. I don't think anybody's acquiring him. I think that everyone's in that camp. There might be a suspension, but he's going to be back on the field. Do you want to win football games? Do you want to not win football games? I get the moral argument. I get all that, but that's a personal decision, as you said. There's going to be plenty of teams who want Deshaun Watson at the trade deadline. There's going to be more teams that want him next March and next April. So
Agreed.
Strike when the iron is hot or don't.
We'll find out if something does happen over the next couple of weeks. Tuesday, November 2nd is the actual trade deadline. All right, John McMullen, Jody McDonald, a.k.a. Mac and Mac, your Birds 365 guys, will be joined next by one of our faves, leading columnist for the Daily News Inquirer, Philly.com, Marcus Hayes, going to jump aboard Birds 365.